the vast majority of communications over the internet, and particularly political communications, are free or low cost. The internet has democratized political discussion like no invention. And I think that we need to leave hands off, and the government needs to know when to leave well enough alone.
Videos on the internet at the moment run unchecked. All one has to do is see the various levels of intelligence and inane thinking that saturate the cable airwaves. But that may be about to change, as a Democrat is calling for regulation of internet political videos. Republicans are incensed and see this as only the beginning of dropping a politically motivated hammer. Let's welcome on to MidPoint, Senior Fellow at the Heritage Foundation's Edwin Meese III Center for Legal and Judicial Studies, also former Commissioner of the Federal Election Commission, former Commission member, I should say, also co-author of Obama's Enforcer, Eric Holder's Justice Department, Hans von Spakovsky. He is joined by First Amendment legal teacher at the University of Kansas and founder of the Denton's law firm in Kansas City, Mark Johnson. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Ed, thank you.
Hans, let me start with you right here, because this is a Democrat on the FEC who says we need to get involved in internet-based campaigning. Why now?
Well, unfortunately, this particular commissioner, she's a relatively new Democratic appointee. She was nominated by President Obama, and she has a prior record of being someone who basically wants to regulate everything. She came from California, from the state equivalent of the FEC, and she clearly wants the government censoring and interfering with political discourse on the internet, which is the complete opposite of the course that we decided to take when I was on the FEC, and we actually promulgated the current regulation.
Why then, when you were with the FEC, did you decide to go ahead and basically let it run unchecked?
Well, it's not unchecked. The one thing that has to be reported and has to follow the rules is if a campaign or a candidate pays to put an ad on the internet. Yeah, that is regulated. But when people are simply posting YouTube videos, or when individuals and organizations are putting up their political opinions, engaging in political speech, that does not have to be reported, and that's not regulated by the FEC. And frankly, that's the way it should be. I agree with Chairman Goodman, the gentleman that was just speaking, the current chairman of the FEC, that is the marketplace of ideas. The internet is a great example of that.
Mark, to you now, from a legal standpoint, this would seem to be just an absolute nightmare to have to go after people, because it's tough enough to find what anybody does on the internet these days. They can hide it in so many ways. And certainly if you think about the law getting involved here, this is something that'll keep lawyers busy for the next 300 years.
Well, Ed, I'm not sure that's such a bad thing.
Okay.
But Hans is completely correct that back in 2006, the commission, the FEC, decided hands off on the internet, and that applies to any ad, any political ad that is posted free of charge on the internet. If it's paid, if they have to pay whoever is showing it, whether it's Hulu or YouTube or the like, then it's subject to the disclaimer and disclosure requirements, just like paid TV ads are. But Ed, you're absolutely right that if we vote on the FEC just last week to decide whether to decide to jump into this.
Hans, what needs to be done at this point? Because he's right, it's a 3-3 vote. So how do you stop this in its tracks now in what really seems to be nothing more than a political ploy to cut down on what the other guys are doing?
Well, Commissioner Revelle, who says we ought to regulate the internet more, she said in her statement that she was going to convene all these meetings and all these technologists and others to talk about this issue. That's also very unprecedented. In the past, the commission has only acted to hold public hearings when all of the commissioners have agreed to do it. And I think she's acting, quite frankly, in a very partisan manner by saying she's going to do this on her own. This is, unfortunately, a pattern with her. She just held a series of meetings across the country to talk about the supposed need to regulate what she called dark money. And where did she hold those hearings? In battleground states, right before the election. That is not the way
After the break, we return. We swing to the issue of voter fraud in the 2014 midterms. It's tough to prove, but some believe already a regular occurrence. And later on this hour, a stop at the water cooler talks about insulting Halloween costumes and this fear of clowns.